Mind calm, body at ease, breathing quiet, intimate, benevolent. Dharma friends, sitting still in vital silence, wanting nothing, we practice eco Buddhism together. The sound of the temple bell booms for all to cease from conflict. May the way of Buddha usher in the dawn of non-violent global village forever. Here is the after sound of the bell. Thunder of silence, light after Dharma rain. Om Amuga Vairocana Maha Mudra Manipadma Chavala Pragataya.
Please stand for the chanting of the refugees. I go for Buddha. No, I go for refuge to the Buddha.
I go for refuge to the Buddha.
And resolve with all beings.
And resolve with all beings.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment.
And realize the great way.
And realize the great way.
I go for refuge to the Dharma.
I go for refuge to the Dharma.
And resolve with all beings.
And resolve with all beings.
I will penetrate the teachings.
I will penetrate the teachings.
And uncover oceans of wisdom.
And uncover oceans of wisdom.
I go for refuge to the Sangha.
I go for refuge to the Sangha.
And resolve with all beings.
And resolve with all beings.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many.
And transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
And transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
Please return to your meditation mats and cushions for another period of meditation. About 5 minutes. These phenomenal knowledge is called mindfulness exercises. Breathing in that position. Fully present with the body, the breath, and the mind. Holding to the left, feeling inhaling as the body opens. Holding the back straight, twisting first to the left, eyes way up, chin way around. Then inhale, back to the other side, exhale. This is at the bottom of the trunk as we circle. Move into that sideways bend of the spine. Forces the whole nervous system. Tensions. And again, breathing in, stretch the top of the head. Inhale. Placing the fingers behind, opening the elbows wide. And then twisting first to the left. Just going slow. Really present with your breath. And turning slowly to the other side. Just stretch your legs if you need to. And turn the legs this way. sun this morning. Little nip in the air. We've got some seedlings planted in the backyard. Please go see and do service. Welcome in from the 10 directions, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning, Arjun Sunam.
Our Dharma talk this morning is being given by one of our senior seminary students. His name is Tana Vaka. He lives and trains from LA, where he lives with his wife and daughter Devani. Teaches in a kind of an outdoor school in the Topanga Canyon. And he's been a traveler to Asia in his study of Buddhism. And he's currently leading one of our study groups on Korean Zen Buddhism. He's smitten by practice and the life of practice and study. So see for yourself. Hannah, please.
Morning.
Morning, Tana.
It's wonderful to be here with you all, and what an honor it is to sit up here and have an opportunity to speak to you this morning. I'm visiting from Los Angeles, and I haven't been to the temple since 2019 here, since before the pandemic, and I just wanted to just take an opportunity to express my gratitude and also my amazement, and all the work that's been done this past 3 years. It's really, obviously these past couple of years have been quite something. And to come and see a new building finished, a new chicken coop, a structure in the garden, and a new cast of characters, residence. It's just got me really feeling how alive this container is here. And, and that is really because of all the individuals, everybody that plants a seed, everybody that, paints the deck, or everybody that just takes a breath, contributes to this Dharma here. And that's really an inspiration, in these times. And so it reminds me of one of our Zen sayings, sun face Buddha, moon face Buddha. And the Dharma here is truly prevailing. It has me remembering the first time that I came to visit Ann Arbor Temple. And so I'll be just sharing a few stories with you this morning, a couple from my life and a couple from about our ancestors, and maybe even a story from this morning. So the first time I came to visit the Ann Arbor Temple was back in 2006. I was living in Chicago and performing comedy, and I was in the midst of a brutal breakup. It was like one of those ones that has the tears and boogers and everything, coming out. It was brutal and just so sad. And when I came here, I think it was called the Big Dig. Is that correct? Downstairs, yeah. So that had just been done, and so Haji Sunum guided me in cleaning the basement floor, and she instructed me and taught me Konsam Bosal chanting, so the Bodhisattva of Great Compassion. And so I worked downstairs, Konsam Bosal, Konsam Bosal, scrubbing every kind of nook and cranny, and it was really actually quite a experience for me, I would say, rolling all of the turmoil that I was in at the time into taking care of what was in front of me in an embodied way, using my voice, using my hands, and bringing all of everything that I was going through, not really an avoidance, but just rolling it all into one. And I can laugh about it now that my girlfriend at the time we got back together. And we've been married 10 years and have a daughter. So, but yeah. I'm going to ring the bell a couple of times just to bring us back to practice between some of these stories. So in the cleaning of the basement and the dust, the ordinary became extraordinary. This kind of experience of all the nooks and crannies, there was some magic there. And, magic and amazement, just kind of being there with the floor, but also a little magic, I think, inside too. And like Haji Sun just mentioned, I work with at a school. I teach second grade, so I spend most of my waking hours with 7-year-olds. And so I'm probably more comfortable speaking out there. But I think that 7-year-olds are really amazing teachers at this too. At this particular school, it's a nature school, so all the students are outside all day. And my daughter Durrani is in kindergarten, and so she so it's a forest kindergarten, so she's outside playing in the dirt all day. And so she brings her backpack home, and it's like super heavy every day. And I open it up and take out huge pieces of bark, and I ask her, "What's this?" And she's like, "Oh, it's my tablet." She's drawn little tablet things on there, or her cell phone, and it's a rock that has like a little piece, like an antenna. So I don't know what they're doing down there, but she's very engaged with rocks and bark. But my 7-year-olds, these second graders, are really still in this world of, and really in this world of magic, And so, in particular, this time of year, we have a lot of stink bugs. And so they find stink bugs, and we'll go on hikes for a couple hours at a time, and they'll bring little stink bugs on their fingers the whole time, just kind of concentrating, looking at them, making sure they don't fall. And I've grown to really love this just immediate attention to their surroundings and willing to just be in awe, of a ant hill, exploding with ants after the rain. They're just mind blown. This is a whole universe of ants underneath this ground that we're walking on. And in particular, giving a lesson, I heard all this kind of whispering, and then all of a sudden they saw this little invisible kind of spider web with this little leaf dangling, And I kind of in that moment just decided to ride the wave of what they were interested in. So we all kind of went over and just watched this leaf dangling, because it kind of looked like it was floating, invisible, And I think they stood there watching this for 10 minutes, just in awe, single pointed concentration on this floating leaf, and it was just such a reminder of the magic, that's really available when we pay attention, you know. And so, I'm really quite inspired by them, and I feel like they feed my practice, that even, our breath or our big question or whatever it may be, when we give ourselves wholeheartedly to it, there's a saying in our liturgy book that tears flow from skyscrapers, wooden men rise to dance, and flowers bloom on highway signs. It's quite beautiful, but so true when we give ourselves fully to this moment. I just also mention that I'm a Dharma student in our seminary, so the Maitreya Buddhist Seminary program here at the temple. And I've been a student for a few years now, and this year my study focus has been on Korean Buddhism, so our Korean lineage history. And I would say that one thing that is really striking to me from this beautiful tradition is the kind of perseverance or the flowing of practice through turmoil. And, we're talking about Mongol invasions and so many different wars and dynasties, and the banishment of Buddhism to the mountains during the period of Neo-Confucianism and the Chosen dynasty, and also the Japanese colonial period, which is the early 20th century, which, in most ways of looking at it was a cultural genocide. And, in our Korean Zen practice, it's called Korean Sun. Sun is the word for Zen in Korea. Often is, whittled down to a few practitioners in the mountains or things like this. And, but has really, truly prevailed. So reading these stories is really quite an inspiration, especially in our times today, to see how this practice, is able to work with any circumstance, with our lives, that is flowing, that this essence of our mind is obviously there and able to be touched and tapped into. And so, and another part that was interesting to me was just learning about how did Buddhism arrive in Korea in the first place, starting out in India, and seeing how the Mahayana tradition expanded up through what is now Pakistan, and was the Gandhara Empire, and traveled along the Silk Road and into China. And this is around the first century AD. This is all kind of happening through about 400 or 500 AD. This transmission and the process of this, the sinification of Buddhism becoming embodied in China. That many different schools were developed at that time based on sutras, based on the written scriptures. So the Lotus Sutra had a school, and the Avatamsaka Sutra had a school, and the Prajnaparamita literature, and the Madhyamaka school, and the mind-only Yogacara school. And so these were started to become, part of the soil in China. But at the same time, about 400 AD or so, Bodhidharma traveled from down the southern part of India to Sri Lanka, and then by sea, and arrived in the southern part of China. And he brought a teaching that was kind of a response, in a way. One way to look at it is a response to what was happening in China at the time. And he was seeing that a lot of the practitioners in China at the time were getting really, just attached in a way to these sutras, or the word, And so what he developed was a slogan or a practice of a mind-to-mind transmission, or a silent transmission of seeing the nature of our mind and attaining enlightenment. And so he was giving this teaching that, let's not get caught in the finger pointing at the moon, as the finger being kind of the truth. But let's not forget that this teaching of Buddhism is about our mind, about our body-mind. And fast forward, about 700 or 800 years in Korea, the founder of our Korean Sun tradition, our Korean Zen tradition, or one of the most influential people is named Chino, or Pojo Chino, and he lived around the 12th century. And so he was, at that time, there were a lot of Korean masters that were going to China to work with Chinese teachers. And he was part of one of the Zen schools at the time, but chose not to go to China and kind of set out on his own path in Korea, and kind of created a system that, has now become kind of the, bedrock of Korean Sun. And so he first was interested in finding kind of matching resources in the literature that would kind of support the Zen teaching of our mind as Buddha. And so he had a couple of awakenings, one reading the Platform Sutra, a section from the Platform Sutra, and the next from reading a section from the Avatamsaka Sutra, just pointing to this mind is Buddha. And but then about 8 years go by, and he's still feeling like he hasn't fully attained freedom. He can feel himself still being pulled around by some passions. And he was really at this point where he describes it as feeling like a big weight on his chest. Like, I understand that my mind is Buddha, but why am I being pulled around like this, still? And so he discovered the teachings of Da Hui. And Da Hui is a Chinese Chan, or Zen teacher, that taught this practice called the Huadu practice, which has become the kind of cornerstone of Korean Zen Buddhism, this Huadu practice, which is a big question, and it's about live words. So not just intellectual understanding about our mind as Buddha, but a live quality, that we can touch and feel. And so I wanted to share with you what Chino read, from Da Hui, that was live words that kind of spurred his really touching his nature, and not just in an intellectual way. So he read this from Da Hui's records. It says, Sun, so that's Zen, does not consist in quietude. It does not consist in bustle. It does not consist in the activities of daily life. It does not consist in logical discrimination. Nevertheless, it is of first importance not to investigate Sun while rejecting quietude or bustle, the activities of daily life, or logical discrimination. Unexpectedly, your eyes will open, and you then will know that these are all things taking place inside your own home. So, I think what happened there with Chino is that he kind of moved out of his head and into the space, and so to speak, and I think took up his practice amidst his daily life. Working with his hands, working with his body, whatever circumstances arose, and that was his final awakening. And he said that at that point, the weight was lifted, and he had never again, had any kind of doubts. And so, I think that, for me, in studying that story of Chino, it reminds me of, not just getting stuck in what I read about Buddhism as being kind of the truth, but to apply it to my actual life, my mind, the way that I treat people, you know, the way that I deal with, you know, things arising. But also it points to me to look at where I get stuck, just even in my thoughts, you know, and in my kind of maybe melodrama or whatever could pop up, you know, that, you know, we have the ingredients, we have all that we need inside of us to wake up, you know, and so, you know, so that we can help ourselves and help others, you know. Because I do think what I'm noticing a lot in my life, you know, especially in Los Angeles, is there's so much talking going on. Like I'm doing that right now, but there's so many things that people are saying all the time. You know, I feel very inundated with media and just, you know, words. And sometimes I can find myself getting wrapped up in these things, but remembering that, you know, this is all taking place in my own home, to kind of trace back the radiance, so to speak, or look at what's happening within, you know, too. So just this morning, we finished up a retreat here at the temple. So this is our spring retreat, a multi-day retreat called Yongming Zhengjin. And so this retreat, how it works is we wake up at 5 a.m., wash up in cold water, and go out on a beautiful walk in the dark out to the park and back. And then there are multiple periods of sitting throughout the day, mixed in with bowing practice and cleaning practice, work practice. We worked in the garden, and some beautiful meals and cleaning together. And we operate together. We harmonize with our situation, with the schedule, and work with, you know, things that arise, or karma that arises, physical pain, worries, thoughts, concerns, all of this stuff kind of comes up, you know. And so this word Yongmeng Zhengjin, so Yongmeng means, the first part is Yong, and that stands for courageous. That's a courageousness. So that's likened to a dragon. And then Meng is fierce. So that's likened to a lion or a tiger. And so this lions and tigers and dragons, you know, don't kind of get caught up in insignificant things. They go directly to, you know, what's most important, you know, in a fierce way. And so this time is really dedicated to put everything down and really, you know, touch at that magic moment to moment, you know, working with our hands, you know, and really touching that essence, you know, that is constantly flowing, just like this temple, you know, flows through the pandemic, and just like, you know, scrubbing the basement flows through a breakup that I'll never forgive her for. No, I'm just kidding. But or, you know, just like flowing through Mongol invasions, or, you know, flowing through intellectual knowledge. And so, you know, it's the practice of opening Buddha's hand and opening Buddha's heart, or the great harmonization. And so I'm really walking away from this experience of the Yongmen Zhengjin to, you know, in the hopes of carrying that spirit, you know, out the temple gate when I fly back to Los Angeles tonight. And being with the crowds at the airport. Onse bosal, onse bosal. And so, yeah, I hope that, all of us here too will take, our practice with us today, as we leave the temple gate as well, for the benefit of all beings. One last thing I wanted to say, sorry, is, this, the teaching that going back to Bodhidharma saying, let's not get stuck in the finger pointing at the moon. Let's remember the moon, it's kind of reminded me of like that saying, you are what you eat. Maybe this kind of thing at the time was really reading these scriptures, settling, Buddhist culture in the country and, eating the Dharma food. But I think Bodhidharma, is saying, yes, but you are how you eat, and this kind of, let's not forget that these sutras are the mouth of Buddha, and the mouth of Buddha and the mind of Buddha, which is Zen, are in harmony. So it's not the words that are the fault, but it's, getting attached to all of this stuff that we're reading and hearing all the time. And so, it's you are how you eat, could be, let's not forget to be like a tiger and go for what's most important. So I have some Dharma dessert actually that I'd like to offer you all. Is on Sundays evenings, myself and two Dharma teachers, we do an online Sangha with our temple here and in Chicago and in Toronto and in New York. And there's some people that Zoom in from all over actually. So you're more than welcome to attend. It would be wonderful to see you there if you ever would like some more practice. We do one sitting and some chanting, and then we have a Dharma discussion. So we look at precepts or the paramitas or some scripture together. And so it's really, it's become like a practice group in a sense, but really open to all. So the link is on the website under the online Sangha tab. So I hope to see some of you there. Thank you so much.
How about questions that you might have for Hannah? Anything he mentioned, or maybe you could try him on something difficult.
Ooh, yes.
Donna, how did you first get? Oh, I get to talk to me. Okay. I have to make it work first. Testing. Okay, Donna, how did you first get interested in Zen?
Yeah, thank you. Well, like I was saying, I was in Chicago. Actually, even before that, I was living in San Francisco. I was studying theater, so I was doing acting, in particular improv comedy. And so the big teaching there, the founder of improvisational comedy in America is named Viola Spolin, and she had this saying of get out of your head and into the space. So how to directly respond to whatever happens on stage in an authentic, spontaneous, obvious, immediate, intimate way, And so at the time I was going to college in San Francisco. I was living on a houseboat in Sausalito. It was very cool. I just put up a sign and the family called me, and it was really quite amazing. But the owner of the houseboat brought me to Green Gulch, which is a farm of the San Francisco Zen Center. So I started to go there and felt just this connection to kind of that immediate, spontaneous. I also suffered from stage fright, so it was really kind of helpful to me for just connecting my breath to open up and be available.
I got another.
Oh,
one,
yeah.
actually. Now that you mentioned,
Log hook is
you
it?
mentioned that you were doing improv.
Yeah.
And I've heard, like, I've never done improv, but I've heard that the main method in improv is to just say yes to everything. So I wonder, like, how that relates. Do you feel that that has a relationship to practice at the same time, like saying yes or like accepting whatever comes up?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so thank you for that. Yeah, and I would say that yes would be half of the equation in that, because it's yes and is the full kind of thing. So I think that relates directly to practice too. It's like kind of listening, agreeance, seeing what's there, but then the and part is the creative response, that it's just kind of, I feel like the live quality of the interaction, that it's flowing. So being able to respond. Ah, yes. Oh, I think it just went out maybe.
Or you can just be loud.
I'll be loud, I can do that. Okay. So as someone that's very much a beginner in learning about Buddhism and mindfulness and meditation, are there any simple recommendations you would have in terms of like carrying this new practice into day-to-day activities for me, such as like cleaning and working, as you mentioned in your story?
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for that question.
Could you repeat it?
So the question was, as a new practitioner, any advice on how to carry the practice into daily activities? So I think one recommendation I would have would be to develop a daily sitting practice, even if it's just 5 minutes, first thing in the morning or at night. I feel like that first step sets a kind of momentum. For me, I like to do it in the morning because it does set a kind of momentum or an intention for the day in that kind of spirit. And then the second thing I would say would be to, work with a teacher, even coming to a service or developing a relationship with a teacher, I think it brings it to like really the ground, like tangible, practices. And then I would say actually kind of working with the hands and, with our washing dishes or doing laundry, anything like that. So this word mindfulness in Pali is, the Pali language was the language kind of most associated with how the Buddha spoke at that time. And so that word mindfulness is, in Pali is sati, and S-A-T-I. And that actually has the root of meaning to remember. So to remember. So that's a real like muscle, building a muscle to remember, to practice, to come back to what's really, at hand, And so that's what I would recommend is once you get the ball rolling of a morning practice, working with a teacher, and then it's building this muscle of remembering to come back to, taking care of each dish, taking care of each fold, something like that. I would say one other thing too that can happen from time to time in that kind of practice is, and I think we probably have all experienced this, is that feeling of, why am I thinking so much? I want to be practicing what's going on and trying to cut out this thinking, But I think one of the teachings that has really struck me the most from this seminary training is that, this thinking mind is also part of our Buddha mind. This is the functioning of our enlightened nature, when it meets causes and conditions. So similar to waves in an ocean, and then the essence, our true suchness, or our, Buddha nature is like the wetness of the ocean. So these waves, these arising and ceasing, our thoughts and worries and concern, this is also part of our Buddha nature. This is also part of our Buddha. So, just as the waves are part of the ocean, they still have this quality of wetness. So to not worry so much about it. So just like a tiger, going at what's most important, touching this essence, waking up.
So when the inner critic or tyrant kind of comes to meet you, what do you usually do in that moment?
Well, I think I do a couple different things. One of the things is this kind of in the spirit of like improv trading is like getting out of my head and into the space. So I try to, just see what's in front of me and try to harmonize, which sometimes can be really quite difficult. Mm-hmm. But one of the things in the Korean Zen tradition, and what I just read from Da Hui, his Hwaru practice is, essentially asking, what is it? What is it that has me going, being pulled this way to that way? What is it? What is at the heart of this? What is this all about? And sometimes, so I'll bring, I try to bring a big question to it. I try to bring a big question, kind of like roll it all into this big sensation of questioning. So I would say those are probably my two ways that I try to work with it. Sometimes I just freak out. Yes.
Hi, yes, thank you. My question is, what kind of took you from being introduced on the farm to becoming a seminary student?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Well, I moved to Chicago to pursue improv further. And I was feeling that, this Zen practice is helping me be funnier, to be honest with you. And so I just felt a little bit more free to be whatever happens on stage. I can deal with it. It's going to be fine. These maybe mistakes on stage are going to turn into wonderful opportunities. And so I started going to we have a sister temple in Chicago. And so the priest at the time there is Sanhas. And so I just really kind of fell in love with the Sangha there, and particularly her teaching, and she was really funny and came to see my shows sometimes, and I just felt a sense of Dharma family there at that temple. And so I started to become more and more interested. I moved into the temple during that breakup, and then I ended up staying there for about a year and enrolled in the seminary for a little bit, for about 4 months, and then I moved out to Los Angeles to follow that girl. And I got her, and then I, after some time though, just started to feel like I really missed that practice, being consistent, working with a teacher. And I continued my study when I was in Los Angeles, just kind of personal study, but I think I was, doing a lot of reading, and I really missed that kind of, what we've been talking about, that really kind of on the ground level. And so I started coming to our annual summer retreats again, and spoke to Haji Sunan, and she gratefully, accepted me as her student. And so that's how it unfolded, in the midst of having a little baby, a child. So it's been a wonderful experience. Yeah.
How can we get you started on doing a little improv for us this morning? besides what you were already doing, the funny stuff?
That's a good question. Well, there's a couple different things. We can do. I don't know. Yes.
Repeat your question.
Yeah. Oh, she prompted me to do a little improv. Any other questions to save me from that?
If I gave you a word,
Yeah.
could you respond?
I could tell you the first word that I'm thinking of if you tell me a word.
Tomato.
Applesauce.
Excellent.
I'll give you a word. I don't need the mic.
Okay.
Crazy wisdom.
Whoa! Open your eyes.
Eyeballs.
Where are they? Neat.
I don't know what it was that we got you to do your Italian accent was.
Oh, yeah. I have a puppet that I work with my students. A couple different puppets, and one of them looks like a chef, so I named him Papa John. This is mostly on Zoom. Teaching on Zoom. I don't know if there are any school teachers here, but teaching on Zoom is really a tricky experience, especially with young ones. So it was mostly, me doing puppet work and trying for them to do, math problems and such. But I tried to bring the puppet back to real, on campus this year a couple of times, which has been really fun. But the students have really been, it's been a very interesting time, for students, young people during this pandemic. Especially second grade, I feel like is very interesting because the last time they were in school was maybe the first half of kindergarten, so they don't really understand, know what it's like to be in school and sit at a desk and, these kind of things. And so, I feel like this year for them has just been kind of teaching them about harmony amongst each other, how to give their attention. We do a lot of Maun chanting with the students and going on some walking. And I have a bell, and I bring my moktok so they can go out and run in the hills, and then when I hit the moktok, they come running back. It's an interesting place. The school where I teach is called Manzanita School, and as Haji Sunu mentioned, it's in Topanga Canyon, which is kind of a ex-hippie enclave, I think Neil Young used to live there and such. But it's really stunning, beautiful. I drive like an hour to get there. I don't live in this area. It's nearly impossible to live there anymore. But, there's, I would say kind of like a sense of Buddhism alive there. The author of this book is named Robert Buswell, and he was the professor of Buddhist studies at UCLA. And he trained in the 1970s at Songwangsa, which is a temple in Korea, the Sangha Jewel Temple, the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha that we take refuge in the morning. There's a temple for each of those refuges. So the Sangha Jewel Temple in Korea, he trained there in the 1970s. And so he actually lived in Topanga Canyon just up until a couple of years ago, kind of above the school. So it was really cool that, oftentimes I would think, oh, wow, this person that is, really trained in Korea and done all this reading is kind of hovering over, where I'm teaching. It's a kind of a cool experience. But the school itself takes, as a mentor, an indirect mentor, Joanna Macy. I don't know if any of you have read any of her works, but she's kind of an activist and Buddhist scholar. And she talks about this thing called the Great Turning, which is kind of this movement of no name, like helping to tend the earth. So moving away from an industrial growth mindset to a earth-sustaining model. And so we follow that at our school, this kind of land stewardship and things like this, but it's very open to kind of quiet mind practices. So I feel very lucky that I have a job that is really aligned with my practice.
maybe a final question. What are you thinking is going to happen with the rest of your life?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. I've been. Well, I would like to become a priest with this sangha. With our broader sangha. So we're part of the Buddhist Society of Compassionate Wisdom in the temples in the cities that I had mentioned. So my goal is to become a priest at one of our temples, and so I've been working on my wife and daughter to hop on board with that plan, and it's starting to get some momentum. As to report, and Alex, if you're watching, it's starting to get momentum. Yeah, so that's my goal.
Okay. It's good to find people with such goals. Maybe some of you have something like that in mind. It's what's it called? Awakening. Bodhicitta. Bodhicitta. It means you want to keep awakening and growing to be of service. Yeah. Okay. Thanks very much, Tom.
Thank you all.
Please stand. We'll listen to the announcement standing. Is that all right?
Okay.
So here's my love, our reader and one of our readers, and I'll read announcements this morning.
Good morning, everybody. Good to see everyone here today. And if you guys have any questions for us after, it looks like I have a white beard. Right? If you guys have any questions, you can ask any of us wearing the gray after the service. We will try to answer your questions. We have donuts today. They bought some donuts for the family service, and there are miraculously donuts left over. So they're free, and they're right here in the entrance hall. Pick one up right after the service and enjoy. They look really good, too. I want to call attention to our calendar. This is our 2022 spring schedule. So we have copies of this flyer on the table in the entrance hall. A couple of highlights from it. We offer an introductory meditation course from time to time, and it runs on 5 consecutive Thursday evenings from 6:30 to 8 o'clock p.m. The next session is coming up. The next 5 Thursday session begins on April 28th. And we also offer an overnight beginner's Zen retreat, which is another way to get that same information. That is overnight May 20th, which is a Friday at 7 p.m., and it runs until May 21st, Saturday at noon. So there's sign-up sheets on the table if you're interested in either one of those. We offer yoga classes, which run in 6-week sessions on Tuesday evenings from 6:30 p.m. till 8 o'clock p.m. That begins on May 3rd. There's a sign-up sheet for that also. After service, we're going to be, whoever wants to help can meet in the backyard, and we're going to be moving some folding chairs and then setting up a canopy in the backyard. And it takes about 20 minutes to do. We've done this before. So if you can stick around and help, fueled by donuts, that would be appreciated. And you can meet in the backyard in about 10 minutes if you're interested in helping with that. We have Recovery Dharma meeting today. Where will Recovery Dharma meet? Right here.
Downstairs.
Downstairs.
Okay. On the lower level.
Okay. So downstairs in this building, Recovery Dharma will be meeting. Other groups meeting today? Okay. And the temple is supported entirely by your kind donations of time and money. There's a fishbowl right outside the door for monetary donations. If you'd like to volunteer your time, there's lots of opportunities, such as working in our newly composted garden in the back. Take a look at it as you go out. It looks beautiful. And thank you, Tana, for leading us in creating the new season of the garden, and just generally cleaning up and lots of volunteer opportunities. Thank you.
I think we're going to resume our garden work day on Saturday afternoons from 3 to 5. So if you come, there will be many things. We're making compost right now, as well as seeding the garden, just getting the beds ready for further seeding. It's a very big garden, so there's always lots to do. And it's good to work with others too. So you're most welcome. So that's 3 to 5 on Saturdays. Okay. Let's do 3 vows to formally end.